No worries.
Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to give us one more minute before I get started. I see we've still got quite a few folks joining in, so hang tight. And if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, please do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our next webinar in the CURC 2024 webinar series. We appreciate being with you this afternoon and taking the time out of your day to be with us. My name is Margaret Bounds. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Connecticut College and a member of the webinar committee at CURC. I'll be your moderator today on a topic that I think many of us struggle with and continue to work on, waste reduction and diversion at large-scale events. For those of you not familiar with CURC, we are a community of zero waste champions in higher education. We are a free member-based organization that works towards waste reduction, diversion, and sustainable materials management through information sharing, educational support, and networking opportunities between staff, faculty, and students. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we start our presentations. If you have problems with your audio or video during the webinar, we encourage you to visit Zoom's support center. To avoid background noise, we've placed all but our panelists' lines on mute. During the session, we encourage you to submit questions at any time by using the Q&A section to type us a note, and we'll try to get to as many of these as possible at the end of our 3 presentations. For general comments, introductions, notes, please feel free to use the chat function in the dashboard. Copies of today's presentation slides will be available to download, and the recording of the webinar will be available to stream on the CURC website in a few days. Before we begin our presentations, I'd like to introduce Alec Cooley from Bush Systems, our sponsor for today. Alec has a long history with CURC. He comes from the campus recycling world, having managed recycling and waste reduction for Humboldt State University many years ago. He helped launch the CURC webinar series and is now a senior advisor with Bush Systems. The floor is yours, Alec.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. And thank you for the opportunity to say a couple of words. And I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just want to give a quick shout out for a couple of things on Bush Systems. And as I let Margaret know, I'm actually on the road, so I'm not in front of a computer screen right now, but if she can advance my slides. What I wanted to say real quickly is, Bush Systems is excited to support CURC. We've been a long-time supporter of the organization going back to late 1990s, and we really appreciate the value that CURC provides. As Margaret mentioned my background, having worked on a campus, I know how valuable it is having that networking opportunity and the ability to bring folks together and learn what everybody's doing on their different campuses is a crucial role. So Bush is excited to be able to support that. From the next slide, about us slide, For those of you who are not familiar with Bush Systems, we are a manufacturer of recycling and waste bins, as well as other diversion streams. We were founded back in the mid 80s by Craig Bush, and he's still the leader of the company. So we are still a small, privately held company that's based out of Barrie, Ontario, about an hour north of Toronto. And from the very beginning, the company has very much been based on sort of a mission-driven philosophy. Like most of you, you really are focused on the outcome of how do we increase diversion, how do we produce better programs with more recovery, and that really goes into all the thinking about how Bush Systems designs its waste bins. If you go to the next slide with showing our bins. We do have a wide range, bins for indoor and outdoor settings, both for front of house common spaces as well as desk side and dorm bins. So a whole range of different types of bins of high aesthetic for the executive suite, as well as bins that can go into away from home and other institutional settings. And really with a lot of this, what we're doing, we really focus on best practices. How do you incorporate those? And if we can just keep flipping through, I think there are a couple more slides showing bins. We try to incorporate those best practices around color distinction, signage above eye level, et cetera, that help to improve sorting rates and all. I don't focus or work on the sales and marketing side traditionally. So what I would do is refer folks who are interested in learning more about our products. I can put you in contact with my colleague, Michelle Dunn, who is our lead for all college and university sales. And she is happy to walk you through more detail about what we offer, and as well as how to customize. We're very flexible in working with universities on how to design bins for your specific needs. So feel free to reach out to me. If you can, maybe if there's not another photo of bins, just skip to the one that says sustainability at the top, our differentiators. So I'll just point out a couple of things again about the company, and what make us stand out is we are entirely based in North America. All of our products are made either in Canada or in the U.S., and that's crucial when it comes to we thinking about the environmental footprint of our bins. We're not sourcing from China. Where we can, we use entirely post-consumer content where we can with our products, which is a certified B Corp. So those are all aspects of how we do our best to try and walk the talk, as it were, with our products. The next slide says our initiatives. I just want to give a quick shout out for this. This is a new thing that we've done in the last 6 months that I'm particularly excited about. Working with Carbon Graph, we've been going through looking at all of our different bin products and doing life cycle analysis to really understand what is the footprint from all aspects of the material we're sourcing to how it's transported, how it's produced. We've been working with this company, Carbon Graph, to do that work. And so you can now, when you come onto our website, you can find greenhouse gas intensity footprint data for each one of our products. It's available on our website. And that's been real important when you're talking about Scope 3 emissions. We all know how difficult it is getting data and simply being able to compare when you're looking at sourcing products. So I'm excited that we're now making that available to make that process easier when it comes to waste bins, at least. You can move to the green thinking slide. One other aspect I'll just give a shout out, and then I'm done and I'll hand it back over, is just one of the things that I really appreciate working with Bush Systems is their interest in trying to help programs really not just put bins out, but put out programs that are going to be effective, that are actually going to collect high diversion, minimize contamination. And one of the ways they do that is through hiring me. My role is to do, we have our own webinar series. We do focus on best practices, not specific to college university, but a lot of what we do talk about does touch on colleges and universities. I also write a blog series, speak at conferences, but the whole philosophy is trying to really capture that knowledge that's out there and package it in a way that can help all of you on the ground level with improving your programs. The next slide about the survey project. This is, I know this has been talked about on previous CURC webinars, but I just did want to give a shout out for this partnership that we've been doing with CURC, as well as National Wildlife Federation, ASHE, Campus Race to Zero Waste, and Zero Waste Campus Council. Some of you might have seen the notices we sent out a couple months ago about the survey we were doing about indoor practices for collecting waste from colleges and universities. We've closed that survey now, but we had 169 schools participate. We're now in the process of doing the analysis of that, and we're going to be publishing results later this summer and into the fall. If you're a school that already did participate in the survey, we have the sort of preliminary results that we've already sent out and shared with folks, but we'll be publishing more analysis in the coming months to better understand what are some of the trends with schools working on centralized collection programs, bin standards, et cetera. So last slide. Thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for CURC for doing the good work you are doing. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with our sales rep, Michelle Dunn. And otherwise, thank you. I'll hand it back over.
Thank you, Alec, and thank you to Bush Systems for sponsoring our webinar today. So now to the topic at hand for today. We have a great panel to talk to you about the waste diversion that they're doing at events. And I'm going to introduce everyone now, and they will all present before we do a moderated question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So first presenting, we have Courtney Forrester, the Environmental Officer for Waste and Recycling at Harvard University. With over 2 decades of experience, she brings expertise in waste reduction from her prior work with municipalities like Newton and Cambridge, Massachusetts, and as Director of Community Programs at Waste Zero. As Chair of the Sustainability Committee for the head of the Charles Regatta, she has led efforts to achieve a 48% diversion rate through compost collection programs. Courtney holds an MS in Environmental Education from Antioch University and a BS in Environmental Science from the University of Delaware. Presenting second will be Angie Gilbert. Angie has over 14 years of experience creating and managing best-in-class sustainability programs for television broadcasts, professional and collegiate sporting events, concerts, and crowds up to 180,000. She has been working in the sustainability field since 2010, when she started developing programs for sustainable practices in television production at ESPN. In the fall of 2015, she joined the Environmental Center at CU Boulder in the Zero Waste program. Zero Waste operational and engagement maven, training and outreach expert, and procurement specialist. Finally, we'll hear from Cassie LaValley. Cassie is Assistant Director of Sustain Coastal at Coastal Carolina University. She graduated from CCU in 2017 after having worked with Sustain Coastal as an undergrad. She started her career in marketing for a solar company and then worked at a nonprofit focused on environmental policy. She is currently a board member with Keep Horry County Beautiful and is pursuing an MBA with a sustainability focus. So please welcome to all of our panelists, and we'll start with Courtney. I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Great, thanks so much, Margaret. Let me get my screen share here. There we go. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for participating. It's great to be here and chatting with other people about trash. It's my favorite. So my name is Courtney Forrester, as we all heard, and by day, I am the Environmental Officer for Regulated Waste and Recycling at Harvard University. But in my free time, I volunteer for the head of the Charles Regatta. It's an annual rowing race held here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I've been volunteering and competing at Head of the Charles for many years. So today I wanted to share with you how we reduced waste and started composting at the Head of the Charles. So a quick little overview about the regatta, a little history if you're not familiar, what sustainability means to us, how we did it, the results, the most important stuff, and then how we're looking to the future. So very quickly, the regatta started in 1965, so we're coming up on our almost 60th anniversary, which is super exciting.
Courtney, sorry to interrupt, but we're only seeing your intro slide.
You're not speaking that?
Did not.
Ooh, thank you. I don't know what else I can show. But you're seeing the full slide, not the. You're seeing this?
Yeah. At least that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing.
It switched over, you know how Zoom is, it switched over to show a different screen and then I don't see it. Let me. So what are you seeing now?
Still the like full PowerPoint.
See the left.
Oh, okay. Someone in the comments says she's seeing, yeah, seeing your whole screen.
The screen, and then do you see advance?
Yeah, we're like, I guess we're not seeing it in slideshow mode, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it's only showing, okay, because again, Zoom will show you different things. Let me scooch that over. How's that? There we go.
Yeah, I think that'll work. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you so much for letting me know. You guys have been like, this is the most boring presentation ever. Here we are. So the Head of Trails Regatta started in 1965. We're coming up on our 60th anniversary. It was a one-day regatta, half day, 12 events, 268 competitors. But it's a 3-mile race. It goes upstream. But it grew very quickly, very popular. And now we have 3 days of racing. There are 72 events and there are 11,000 competitors. It's about 24 countries, 2,400 crews overall, and our spectators, about 400,000 people over the whole weekend. So a lot of people are coming to see it all happen. And it's run by volunteers. We have a very small paid staff and a very small paid staff, and it's mostly run by volunteers. So 2,200 in 2023. Let me just move some of my notes over here so I can keep sure that I know what I'm saying to myself. So moving on to how we moved on sustainability. So after the 2018 regatta, folks really realized they wanted to make an impact, right? Big, large event, we're outdoors, a beautiful nature, it's the fall in New England. So they decided after 2018 regatta, what can we do? And we kicked off a sustainability committee for the 2019 regatta. And the goal really was to reduce the impact. So we focused on increasing recycling, introducing composting, adding water bottle refill stations, and eliminating the sale and the single-use plastic bottles and plastic bags. And we did this by coordinating with our Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, which manages the state parklands along the river. We also introduced a compost hauler called Black Earth Compost. If you're familiar with Eastern Massachusetts or even Southern New Hampshire, they do a lot of the compost programs here in the area through municipalities and other community programs. And really had to work with our food vendors. Because if you see on the picture on the top right, we asked them to make sure that all their food was sold in compostable serviceware. Plates, utensils, everything had to be compostable to make it easy for the spectators and participants to just put it right in the green compost bin, not have to sort or separate or scrape. So you really had to work with those by coming with a pledge to say you won't sell plastic bags, you know, if you have stuff that you're selling, and all your compostable serviceware, and you're not selling any water in single-use plastic bottles. So we really worked with these vendors to really set it off. And of course, our volunteers are really the success. As I mentioned, we are completely run by volunteers. The entire race committee and race operations are full volunteers like myself. And if you remember the previous slide, we've got over 2,000 volunteers for the whole regatta, and just shy of 10% are my sustainability volunteers. We have a really large army out there doing great work. We do a training, we do an online webinar training the week before the regatta. We have a microsite, a little website for folks to go look. A lot of it's logistics, where to go, how to show up, dress in layers, bring a water bottle, but also more about recycling and what's entailed and what we do here at the site. And then each shift, when everyone checks in, we check everybody in, make sure they know what they're doing, where their assignments are, and answer any questions they may have. And I'll point out in this bottom picture, this is one of the days of check-in, and the couple behind the green bin, those are my parents, my mom and dad, and they've been volunteering for the past couple of years as my sustainability volunteers. So it's a really point of pride that they come and support me. And then they also cheer me on for racing, which is nice. But they come and they volunteer for several shifts, which is fun. So how do we do it? We set up our waste sort stations and we call them trios. As I'm sure you all know, you can't have one bin without the others because they all become contaminated. So we have our trash, recycling, and compost all together, our trios. So the folks on the left are setting up the compost bins, putting the bags in there. We tie an extra bag to the frame, so you're always kind of ready. We put those little swing hanging frames on it. Here we use Clearstream containers. They work really well for events, and they also match the recycling containers that the state already had for trash and recycling. So it was an easy way to kind of have that implemented already. The picture on the right is one of our setups inside of a tent where it's a little more controlled and it's all set, those exact items being sold there. So we take them, label them right on there to make it super clear for the participants and the spectators there that, yeah, this fork is compostable. And you'll notice here, we put that trash container on the back side, so it's not as convenient. Because unless you have like energy bar wrapper or a coffee cup from off-site, pretty much everything on site should be compostable or recyclable, to make it very clear here. But then out in the riverbanks along the edges, we have, again, the trio set up. Our volunteers, we have a nice bright green vest so they can see, the spectators and athletes can see that we're part of a committee. We're not just super excited about being near a trash can, like I normally am, but our volunteers are there to answer questions, help with sorting. And as you can see, they're labeled out there and people can see what's happening, what goes where. And we also have full integration with the entire regatta operation. So our volunteer lunches, so every volunteer provided a lunch and it's fully compostable. See the picture on the bottom left, the wet naps and the condiment packets, a little bit tricky, but we have to provide the wet naps because some of our volunteers on river control spend 12 hours on a boat and we want to make sure they can, wipe their hands and clean up before they have their sandwich. But everything else is fully compostable. We have resources for visiting teams. So not only when they sign up for the athlete side, make sure they know, we also, when the boat trailers come, because they drive those trailers with 60-foot boats on them, park in the parking lots, we hand them, our parking committee hands them a sheet, which is a copy of there, and 3 bags, a trash, recycling, and compost bag. So at their own trailer, where usually the teams hang out between racing, they can kind of generate, the waste that they generate can go into the bags there. When they're done, they're filled or they leave, they bring the bags to the volunteers at one of those stations and we take care of it for them. And also we make sure, again, making sure parents are aware because they come for the youth teams, they're not buying cases of water bottles. We tell them to bring reusable bottles because we have water refill stations like from Water Monster. We rent from there, and also some of our water agencies have trucks they bring out for events to fill stations up as well. We also do some plastic film recycling, mostly for vendor setup, for when the vendors are coming with their case wrap. Any new boat vendor that comes with a large new boat, a fresh new boat for a competing team. And 8 is 60 feet long, so you can imagine how much clear plastic film is on that. Obago, a company we work with, collects that and it makes sure that it's getting recycled. It's small weight, but a lot of volume, and it makes an impact, especially on our vendor setup. And our vendors are seeing that we're separating out not just cardboard, but everything else too, and they start to change their operations as well. We also integrated with our regatta pack, the registration packets. They are now in a compostable sleeve. We eliminate a lot of the paper inserts. Everything's a QR code or direct to a website, so much less volume. We recycle and reuse our bow cards, which are the numbers that go on the bow of the boat. So the competitor, you can see which competitor order they're in. And our name tags are compostable. Yes, you can get compostable name tags. Even if they don't make it into the compost bin, they at least are less plastic. So results. First, I want to show you what we had prior. Kind of all over the place, right? Trash, recycling, maybe, who knows? The state basically put out the trash and recycling bins, those boxes with the black bags and the blue recycling. And as we all know, with any unstaffed recycling container, good luck, hopefully anything good gets in there. A lot of this recycling is probably from vendor setup, from some of the cardboard in the earlier days, but bottles and cans may or may not make it in there. And if they did, other stuff might be on top. So it's not really good results, not really being managed. Diversion rate, pretty poor. The average of that is about 16% diversion and very low recycling. So when we switched over to adding in compost, so just to orient you on this slide, the left column is 2018 before we started, and then it moves into the 4 years we've rolled it out so far. Obviously, the regatta did not happen in 2020. We can all understand why. But that first year we saw, I was nervous that first year, not knowing what was going to happen, but the fact that we saw that diversion jump up to 38%, I was like crying, so happy to see the needle move, and collected almost 2 tons of compost. It's important to mention, I didn't say it earlier, Black Earth, our hauler, does windrow, outdoor aerobic composting. So you have to make sure that the compost that goes in there, that volunteers are managing those stations, clean stuff goes in those green bins because it's not going to enter by digester. It doesn't get depackaged. So you have to make sure that only clean stuff in there. And our volunteers all wear compostable gloves. So we do ask them to grab anything out of the green bins that are contaminant. And if they're so inclined to grab things out of trash or recycling, there are different bins, but definitely making sure the compost is clean. But as you can see, we've really been able to continue to move forward. 2021 was a little bit of a comeback year, supply chain challenges. The vendors had amnesia, they forgot, even though they signed the pledge. So we've been enforcing that more. 2022 we saw more trash than I wanted, but the weather was fantastic. We had the record attendance in all of our 60 years. So the fact that we still had a lot of clean recycling and compost was really impressive. And then last year, we're touching that 50, it was 48.5% diversion rate. And we're just continuing to climb and really to see what else we can continue to do. And with that, I'll leave you with our next steps. So we're continuing to do a stronger enforcement of that vendor pledge to make sure that they understand what we're doing. It's not hard to source compostable materials. One year we put the feet to the fire, and the next day, guess what they showed up with? They had compostable materials that they said they couldn't find, but they found within 24 hours. So, you know, a little meat push on them and it happened. Continue to work with all of our race committees. And up until last year, the goal was 50%, but I just upped it to 60%. Because of our great success. And then we just had some great media coverage. Our local NBC and ABC channels have done some interviews. And I'll leave you with a picture of me on the right. That's on a Saturday after I had competed, left my team, got my credentials back on for volunteering. I walked past a full compost container. I had to swap it out, walking back to one of the tents, and one of my co-chairs snapped that picture of me. So happy as a clam after a great race and full bag of compost. What could be better? So thank you so much. I look forward to any questions after all the presentations.
Thank you so much, Courtney. And we will move to Angie next.
All right, is that showing up?
It is.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for everyone for being here and for CURC for having me, and great presentation, Courtney. We'll touch on some things really similar, and then we're going to talk about a few different things that we do on our campus. I work at the University of Colorado in the Environmental Center, and I'm the Zero Waste Program Manager. So I just want to talk a little bit about a few of the things I'm going to be referring to, just to have reference points. So the Environmental Center is in its 54th year. We're student funded, student led, and it's just our innovative hub for sustainability. So we do a lot of operations and work with students on sustainable projects on campus. Our CU recycling group is a partnership between our facilities management folks, housing, dining, the e-center, and then we also have a few other partners outside of that that work with us quite often. And then our Ralphie's Green Stampede is the campus sports sustainability program that was created with CU Athletics, and I didn't put the timeline on here, but that was started in 2008. So we've been doing it quite a while. So currently our program, so our zero waste event program, supports about 75 medium to large scale events a year. These include our welcome events, our move in, our move out, concerts, football, basketball, and then this last picture is of the Boulder, bunch of my students in a dumpster enjoying the end of the day after sorting. And most of these are a collaboration with our facilities management and the hosting department, whether that be athletics or housing or dining. And on top of that, our FM folks are covering about 500 other small events a year. So we are definitely busy. I know most college campuses are. Most of our events have been about 70% or more diversion rate from landfill by weight. But unfortunately, we've had some recent compost changes, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, that have decreased our compostability overall. So that's been kind of tricky. The way that we start out our kind of engaging people about zero waste is obviously a lot of folks on campus know about the e-center, but not a lot of folks do. So we have a zero waste event request form here, and it just talks talks a little bit about why these folks are filling this out, but it asks questions about like setup, breakdown, vendors, compostables, food service, things outside of the general event management request form that campus requires folks to set up and send out. And that way we can get some more specific information about what they're doing at their event. There might be things that aren't requested on the EMF form that are pertinent to sustainability and to a zero waste event. So we try to get that information ahead of time. If those folks don't fill out this form, we encourage them to, and if they don't still, we just reach out to them. But it gives us an opportunity to start planning for the event before we actually have a conversation. And then I just kind of outlined a few like major topics that we go over when we're planning an event. Once we get all this information, we kind of determine our support style. Like, are we going to bring a couple stations and leave them and come back and sort them? Or do we need 25 students to come to this event and stand by stations and sort after? So kind of look at the best way to gain diversion. Some of the big important things on here are the type of station we're using. So we use some different types of stations. On the last talk, they were talking about their trios or clear stream stations. We use those quite a bit for events. We also use like a Rubbermaid brute bin with a lid on top and a sticker around the top. And that's something we use like at our football events. And then at some of our other like events, we consider our move out to be an event. We use different stations, and I'll show some pictures of those, but we utilize some of our current waste stations as donation stations for that event. Some other big things to note: if you don't have a bunch of bins that are different colors, you could always put a sign on one or a lid on one and not on the other. So there's ways to take the bins that you already have, the current infrastructure, and create multiple different stations out of whatever you already have. So, you know, spending money is not imperative if you can avoid it, or when you're just building a program. Some other things to do are color coding. We've seen that quite a bit. Having different colored liners. If there's not an ability to have different colored liners, I suggest all clear. It makes it really easy for folks to see what's in the bag, and a lot of that material has to be debagged anyway from our team. So, you know, even if there's compost in a clear bag, we're still going to sort through that and not put that clear bag into the compost. And then I just put wheels on here. I think it's really important to have some sort of an ability to move this material. Zero waste event work is hard work, and it's heavy, and it's tricky. So having a way to move this material really quickly actually improves morale and the ability for people to get things done really quickly. You know, we look at procurement, food and beverage, the giveaways that folks are giving. Are they packaged and pre-purchased, or are they free? That really affects how much we see discarded at the end of an event. Is there a build out? Is there construction? At our Boulder event, they do a lot of construction and set up a big stage. So are we going to have leftover material that we need to donate? And then figuring out the best way to staff the event. Can you get volunteers? How many people are coming? Are there 50,000 people and they're going to be full food and full beverage? So as an average for 50,000 guests, we get about 16 to 20 sorters for about 5 hours. But then an event where there's a small event with small food and drink, we might have 2 people and 10 stations, and they're just walking around doing what we call top sorting and just checking in on the stations. Great ways to get people to volunteer or to come to your event are providing incentives like food and a shirt and tickets and things like that to get them excited about being part of the team, which is really important to us at CU. And then also creating kind of a timeline. I'm working with the event team to make sure you don't miss anything. You're not missing staff meals prior to the event during setup, or some sort of a donation on a breakdown day, or, oh yeah, we forgot about this one thing that creates a lot of waste, and we just usually throw it all away in the closest dumpster. So making sure that you're kind of covering all your bases and making maps so that everyone is kind of aware of the perimeter and how you'd like to see things go on your campus or at your facility. I like to do lots of pictures, but up here is the picture of our students. I don't know, sorry, come here. A picture of our move out setup. So we use a lot of our waste bins actually for our move out give and go donation drive. And this year we did 21 tons of materials that we donated, identifying multiple different materials that are important to donate and to keep out of the landfill. And we have some circular economy things that I'll talk about a little bit later, but we try to reduce the amount of landfill items after students move out. And then some of our volunteers here are zero waste stations, our tri-bin stations, and then the brutes that we use. We actually have a facility, which we're really fortunate to process all this material, which not everyone has. So that makes it a little bit easier for us to sort after if we need to and not have to have as many staff at the event for the entire duration. I think it's really important to work with some really good, trustworthy haulers. It's really important to reach out to even landfills now are doing composting and have like restores and recycling opportunities, but connecting with as many haulers and landfills, recycling facilities, composters, and just understanding what it is that you can have on site and what they can handle and what their end markets are for those commodities. And if they offer rebate. A lot of times separating out cardboard and chipboard or paperboard can give you a really high rebate, and chipboard is actually very heavy. So we utilize aluminum and chipboard and some of these other materials that give really great rebates to help pay for the other materials to have them be recycled, which is a great way to kind of advertise that to whatever group that you're working with to encourage them to utilize your services. Other items that are really important to focus on are food that can be donated. This is a picture of our group EFA, that's a local emergency assistance food outlet. And we really like to try to give back to the local economy and to do a lot of circular work. So we were giving food back to the food pantry in Boulder, but now we actually have a food pantry on campus. So we're giving back to that. It's called the Basic Needs Center, and they actually take food and personal care. So from our move out event, that's a big one, or just from like a race, a 5K, we have a big a bike and a couple 5Ks that people get a lot of food donated, melons and fruit and lots of bars, and we donate to our Basic Needs Center. We just call them up and bring it over, which is really nice. We have a group called Resource Central, and they take building materials and some home goods. We just found this year for a lot of our housing essentials like dining ware and kitchen stuff, small shelves and some bedding, that some folks called Home Ahead were able to take a lot of those materials, and they give those to unhome folks that are kind of ready to move into a place of their own. So we try to find a lot of different outlets outside of just the generic, compost recycling and landfill opportunities. So to reduce other impacts, we look for sustainable procurement, like was mentioned before. We work a lot with eco products and Ball Cup, which are here at the top, trying to get materials. We're doing all CMA approved materials now because of our composter. We try to work on outreach. You see all these bed pads stacked in our little cart here, trying to get students not to buy those materials, not to purchase things that are not recyclable. That year we did recycle them, and it was a big pain. So we are probably not going to go back to that again, but we did it for 1 year, and it was a lot of work. Happy to have done it. And then we also use Petoskey plastics, circular liners, so they are recycled. And we actually have a program where we have a densifier, and we densify plastic bricks and send those to Petoskey to create more liners. Obviously not the direct liners we're using, but we're trying to be more circular with that. And that's at our distribution center. But we use those liners to be a bit more sustainable at events. So after your event, after you've had all these things happen, it's best to collect and interpret all your data. I like to take pictures of all the dumpsters and everything that we've done. So I remember we had 5 cardboard dumpsters that were full and 3 compost dumpsters that were partially full. That way we can kind of look back and make sure that the data reflects the actuals that we're seeing. You can always request that from your hauler. If you can't get it from your hauler, you could use a scale and weigh a small amount, maybe one of the dumpsters, and then extrapolate that out. We like to use a lot of volume to weight conversions from the EPA. They have a really great tool that they've put on that's accessible to everyone. And you can kind of, if you had, 12 full landfill dumpsters, you can look at the MSW and see, okay, this is probably what we had in those dumpsters. We do get kind of creative with our metrics. I wouldn't say we try to alter things, but we do calculate metrics based on our collection style. So as you can see, our students are stuffing things in this bin here, as well as jumping on top of the cardboard. And our cardboard bin actually is a lot more dense than the cardboard bin that the EPA suggests. So we kind of try to manage that best as possible with our data and make sure it reflects what we sent to the facility. Here's some awesome metrics from our move out event and then our last football season. And just making sure that you're collecting metrics that are useful and meaningful and that can tell a story. I think it's really important with pictures and the metrics to kind of prove what it is that you're doing and why and show that data. It really helps to justify what we're doing on campus and why. And honestly, 90%, very few people are getting that number. So to me, any diversion rate above 0 is a success. You see in our move out here, we've kind of gone up and down over the years, but we donated 21 tons of material, which is incredible. And over the years, we've kind of decreased our landfill, not significantly, but we're trying really hard to reduce the amount of waste that students are producing and their dorms and their halls when they leave. The biggest thing I think is important is kind of creating goals around honesty and transparency, being really realistic about what you can achieve and build on that progress, finding partners and vendors you can trust that uphold your values, making sure that compost is getting composted, making sure those materials are getting recycled and not going to an incinerator. You don't want to spend all that time sorting those materials out and then seeing them be burnt or used for energy. That's great. It works for some people, but I really don't want to see that aluminum can go to an incinerator if possible. Don't get discouraged if something goes wrong. It's all about being flexible, seeking creative solutions, finding a way to modify and improve for next time. Everything you're doing, even if it, doesn't work out in the compost. I've had compost loads entire 30 yards go to the landfill because someone threw a glass bottle in and it broke. And that's discouraging, but definitely don't let it discourage you from doing it in the future. Some innovative opportunities that we've been looking at, and I feel like a little behind at this point with the reusables is really trying to get more reusables at our events and on campus. I just went to an event last week with the Green Sports Alliance, and they were doing all reusables for the entire event, and it worked really well. And I'd love to mimic that model if possible at our facilities. And then we're also looking into the possibility of sending some of our compost to an on-campus in-vessel aerobic composter. So we're kind of in the process of looking for one of those. There's also some really great AI technology out there that we just haven't had a moment to look at, but I think could be really great in helping us move our diversion forward and increase our event and just campus diversion in general. So we had a really hard wall recently with our A1 Organics. They no longer want compostables and told us you could only send food waste and food scraps and small 3-gallon compostable bags. And so I worked with them quite a bit and promised them that we're going to drive this out there and we're going to pick through it and make sure that everything's CMA approved. And it really doesn't take a lot to do that, just a little extra time and effort. They were really willing to teach us a lot about what they're doing, and it really helped our program. And we were able to donate to compost 18,000 pounds this year over our 30,000 from last year, but we were still able to do 18,000 because we went the extra mile and made that effort with them. And then just kind of know some of your like opportunities with legislation and policies on like zero waste ordinances and plastic reduction acts, and trying to suggest alternatives. You know, hey, you're not supposed to have plastic bags anymore in the city. Let's find an alternative way. Let's do paper bags. Let's do reusable bags, to try to encourage people to reduce waste as much as possible. And we have a lot of great ones happening in Colorado right now, but we're pushing for more in the future, and I think that this will really help push event zero waste forward in a really progressive way. So that is all I have.
Great, thanks, Angie. As we switch over to Cassie, I just want to flag for folks that Courtney has done a great job answering questions in the Q&A box. So if you asked a question, you can go in there and you should be able to see everything that she's answered. And I think our other panelists are happy to do that as well. So you could go back and check those responses.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angie. I really appreciate those great insights. My name is Cassie LaValley. I'm the Assistant Director of Sustain Coastal. I'm going to go through my presentation a little bit quickly, but I will be sure to pop my email in the chat. So feel free to connect with me afterwards. I'd love to hear from y'all. So just a little bit more about us. Sustain Coastal is the Office of Sustainability at Coastal Carolina University. We were actually started in 2005 by a student who saw the need for a recycling program on campus. And so what started out as a much smaller initiative, very focused on recycling, eventually grew into the department that it is today. And today our work encompasses many sustainability initiatives across campus and in the local community as well. We currently have 3 full-time staff members and 16 student staff members as well, who help us run our daily operations. And without them, our efforts truly wouldn't be possible. They work very hard and they're very passionate about the work that they do. In 2015, our county landfill actually made composting available. So we started food waste composting in our dining halls and at football games almost immediately after that. At this point, there we go. At this point, we've pretty much got it down to a science, and our Zero Waste Football Initiative is a well-oiled machine. In 2022, we actually won the national title for the Game Day Zero Waste Touchdown Challenge, where we diverted 82% of game day waste from the landfill at one of our home games during the 2022 season. So it was a very exciting moment for our team to be recognized for years of hard work put into these efforts, kind of fine-tuning this process. And then another initiative that we've also been working on is zero waste baseball on campus. We currently offer composting at one CCU home baseball game every year. But this spring, we were awarded first place for the green events category during Campus Race to Zero Waste, where we diverted 89% of game day waste from the landfill with over 1,000 fans in attendance. But we didn't just start there. So it took years of trial and error and implementing these iterative changes to really get where we are today. So just to back up a little bit, from the start, we again started in 2015 when composting became available in our county, and we started with one home game per season. Since it has evolved, and now every single Chanticleer home football game is a zero waste effort, which we're very proud of. A lot of work goes into that leading up to each and every game. But it also allows 16,000 fans to really play a role in these efforts and learn how to minimize their environmental impact. So to build capacity on our game days, we actually partnered with classes that have a service requirement to volunteer at the games and collect material from the stands after the game as well. We also used existing infrastructure we already had in place. We just adapted it to make composting available for the zero waste game specifically. We slapped some composting signage on some of our trash bins. And we also estimated our numbers to the best of our ability using volume to weight conversions. So it definitely wasn't a perfect process. We are also limited in our waste reduction efforts because at the time we were still building up our partnerships with key stakeholders like athletics and Aramark Dining Services, our food service vendor on campus. In these photos, you can see some of our volunteers back then positioned at the stadium concourse at waste bins to help fans rather make more informed decisions about where their waste goes. We also didn't have much signage, again, that listed which items go into each bin. So having these volunteers at each station was very crucial at that point in time to help educate attendees. Then in 2019, something happened here at Coastal. Our stadium expanded. We also started selling alcohol at concessions. And so average attendance for our games grew by over 10,000 fans. And so as you can imagine, we definitely saw an urgent need to rethink our operations to accommodate this increase in waste that we were surely already seeing, but we were sure to see continue to grow into the future. And so then in 2019, we kind of regrouped, and with the rise in prominence and excitement around Chanticleer football, we saw an opportunity to expand these zero waste efforts. So we actually purchased 32 zero waste stations specifically for this effort that afforded us the ability to easily move them around. They were on wheels, so we could move them where needed, and they were also more visually appealing as well. I have a picture on the next slide of what those look like. We also designed signage that specifically had images of items that fans might encounter and need to dispose of throughout the game, which was very important so that fans could quickly and easily make a decision about where their waste goes. We also pivoted to focus more on sustainability students who could receive hands-on experience in their field. So we partnered with Intro to Sustainability classes as the new Sustainability and Coastal Resilience major was developed here at CCU. It was also crucial to us to strengthen those partnerships with athletics and Aramark Dining Services here on campus to really eliminate single-use plastics and focus on source reduction. Because prior, we were not able to reduce waste at the source. So this is something that we truly felt strongly about focusing on in this new 2.0 version of zero waste football. And this is applicable no matter what your event looks like, whether it's athletics or otherwise. It's crucial to develop some of these partnerships because we certainly can't do it alone. As we heard from Angie and Courtney, these are really large scale initiatives. And so it really takes a village. So working with Aramark, speaking of partnerships, we replaced our plastic souvenir cups, which weren't recyclable here in our county, with these ball aluminum cups. And we actually learned that fans liked these much better. They keep drinks colder and they are also infinitely recyclable. So they can return to the market within 60 days after recycling them. So it was really a win all the way around and a really exciting time as fans got real jazzed about these cups that had this teal writing on them. We are Teal Nation here at CCU, so it all worked out for the better. So we didn't stop there though. We had to explore ways to build capacity for our operations as more and more waste was generated. And a few things happened. We saw some funding sources that helped us scale up our operations in a shorter amount of time than we would have otherwise. With a grant we received, we were able to purchase additional bins to expand our zero waste operations into the stadium's hospitality suites, which was very important. It helped us tremendously with our diversion rate, increasing from an average of about 67% per game to 75% and all the way up to 82% for our highest. Now, this didn't come without its own set of challenges. We definitely had to ensure that we had enough compostable items for the suites. And when we ran out, we had to revert to single-use plastics. But we knew the suites were important because when all compostables were offered in those spaces, we saw our diversion rate rise to 82% or higher. Aramark also did a great job moving away from single-use condiment packs and instead offered condiment stations that could be readily dispensed directly onto concession items, which further removed single-use plastics from the waste stream. And of course, there are other factors beyond our control as well, one being the weather. We can't control when it rains, but when it rains and cardboard gets wet, as we all know, it's not great for our diversion rates. But we still try to save what we can and compost what can't be recycled and so on. Aramark also explored opportunities to donate leftover food from concessions rather than composting it, which helped immensely. Plus the food was going to those in need rather than ending up in the waste stream. And then we also tried to reuse items like rally towels when possible, rather than landfilling them. And we found they worked out great for cleaning rags for our friends in custodial services. They're real excited about those. So we've recently started exploring ways to more accurately measure weights, as we've heard from the previous presentations, which is very important. We purchased a large PET scale, something I never thought we would purchase for this office. That worked really well, and we piloted its use to weigh individual bags of waste during the zero waste baseball game that I mentioned. We also pivoted our volunteers to help with our Sunday sorts, where we came in the morning after games to sort the waste, and eventually determined we could accommodate up to 30 volunteers. We coordinated with an outside cleaning company to sweep the stands, save us the materials for the next day. And this made our sorting process incredibly efficient and really sped things up. So now it only takes us a few hours to sort through thousands of pounds of material. Our new bins, as I mentioned, are very visual. You can see them here up on the screen. And then the way we comprised our sorting line is we had volunteers on one side sorting the materials, getting that hands-on experience, with student staff on the back of the line monitoring the process, answering questions, helping them every step of the way. We also experimented with offering student organizations an opportunity to fundraise by volunteering with us, and it worked really well. We plan to offer it again this fall as well. These images are just to give you a better feel of the scale of waste that we're talking about. During the 2023 season, we recycled over 6,000 pounds. We composted over 4,000 pounds and donated over 1,500 pounds of food to local charities. So we're really proud of how far this program has come, and we hope that it will inspire more opportunities, not only here at CCU, but also beyond our campus as well. And so just to reiterate some pathways to success, some of the things that I mentioned that no matter what your event is, will help guide you to zero waste success. Partnerships, there's strength in numbers. It's nearly impossible to have a successful zero waste event without involving key stakeholders. So start working on these relationships in advance so you feel more comfortable tackling challenges later on. Focus on progress over perfection, just like zero waste football at CCU. Don't expect your first go at it to be perfect, and focus on more incremental improvements and making it better each and every time. And then also, build capacity through volunteer recruitment, focus on source reduction rather than just diversion, and explore donation and reuse opportunities, which is sometimes underutilized, but provides tremendous benefit to the local community as well. And then brainstorming, innovative solutions, but don't be afraid to pivot if something isn't working out. Exploring outside funding sources to help advance your initiative, and also analyzing trends in attendance. If that data is available to you, it really helps you plan in advance so you don't run out of items like compostables and recyclables and have to revert back to single-use plastics and that sort of thing. So it's very hard to plan when you can't predict crowd size, but when you can, it definitely comes in handy to help accommodate the numbers that you will see at your event. And with that, I think I will hand it back over to Courtney and team, or I'm sorry, Margaret and team.
No, you're good. Thank you, Cassie and everybody. That was those presentations were really awesome. I feel like I got so many ideas. Just to say again, we did have a lot of questions answered in the Q&A box, so make sure to check that out. We have 1 minute, so I'm gonna throw one question that I saw a couple of times. Since you all are using folks to to actually sort waste. There were a few questions about protective equipment, safety, did you have to have liability waivers? Someone was specifically concerned about bees. Any advice you can give around those would be great.
Well, I'll just Courtney with the head of the Charles Regatta. So I actually have a bee allergy myself. I carry an EpiPen at all times. It's fun working in recycling as a profession. But I'm very sensitive, obviously, to that too. And even though the fall, when the regatta is, we're outdoors, yellow jackets are really strong in New England and the Northeast during that time. We haven't had, knock on wood, an issue with them swimming the containers. We've had a couple incidents, and we just basically try to get more in the shade, get away from something. Very sensitive people's concerns with that. And the same with any sort of safety. Again, like we don't have any sharp items. We're not asking people to like pick through trash cans. So we tell people it's kind of almost like if you were a server at a restaurant and you have to clean someone's table. That's the kind of level of goo you might get. Where if someone like they're clean, they just finished their clam chowder and they dumped it in the trash can, you probably can scoop up that whole little bowl and put it in the compost. So we're not asking people to touch sharp items. There's staffed public event recycling bins. We're not getting things that might be unsavory in a public unstaffed area. So we don't see any issues with sharps or any other items that could be unsafe for us. And we're all volunteers, so we're not dealing with, I know there's some issue about students and stuff. But I'll just leave it at that. We just are I'm very sensitive obviously to the bees, but we're just very sensitive to anyone's comfortability. Even the ick factor, they probably won't sign up for our committee. So hope that helps.
Yeah, one thing just to quickly add on that, one thing that has worked really well for us is when volunteers sign up, we have an electronic form for them. And one of the questions we ask about is allergies. So that way we can kind of plan accordingly. We can have those conversations up front of maybe, unfortunately, this isn't the best volunteer opportunity for you because you may be encountering some of these common allergens. So for things like peanuts that are really unavoidable in the waste stream, we try to be very, very careful and take safety into consideration. And so sometimes, unfortunately, that means people not volunteering, but more often than not, we are able to make accommodations for them.
Yeah, those are great answers. And I'd say the biggest thing that we tell people is it's not worth getting a stick or a prick or, sticking your hand in something that's, a bodily fluid. It's just not worth it. That bag can go in the trash and it needs to go away and not be touched, especially by students. For our volunteers, we don't have them do a lot of those manual labor things if possible. They stand by stations, they instruct people, they wear bright green t-shirts. And like you mentioned, Courtney, earlier, just so people know that they're not just digging in the landfill bins. But yeah, we try to encourage them to only do top sorting and not, if they can't see the bottom of the bin, it's not worth their safety. So, but it is sorting it's manual and it's tricky. It's a lot.
Thank you all so much. I know we're a couple minutes over time, but I did capture all the questions. So we can send those to the panelists and see if they can type some quick responses that we can share with the slides once we get all of that sent back out to you. So again, thank you all for joining today. I just put up our upcoming webinars. So if you are interested in some of the future CURC information, we'll be sending out our next registration information soon. And thank you again to Courtney, Angie, and Cassie for sharing your expertise, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.